Mm-hmm.
We have to make it sexy.
Mm-hmm.
We have to appeal. We have to spend money uh, on the marketing that it takes to affect minds, just like these other assholes who are competing for our attention and for our mental space. They're like, all they want us to do is buy stuff and make subscriptions to whiteness, and they're willing to spend money to do that. We have to be willing to spend money to get our kids to love black people so much that they make black decisions.
Mm.
Yeah, we need propaganda for
Mm.
ourselves.
So when it comes to education and it comes to what we're talking about in building with the community, how do we link education to building within the community and we have more of that village mindset? Because someone in the chat did touch on that. They touched on how we work together to educate the child. So the only issue that I kind of have with that is if we are us as adults are educating these children, do we need to first self-identify and have that identity because we have an identity crisis? So I know there we're having this conversation. So it's those like us that are we kind of have already self-identified, and even you changing your name. So what is the process? What does that process look like so that it is more for the community? And I understand everyone can't be saved. But as a community aspect, if we said us and everybody in this chat wanted to get together right now and build that community, starting with educating ourselves and self-identifying, what would those steps look like?
Well, I really do believe it begins with building community, and what that means from my perspective, on my personal perspective, is choosing uh, who you build relationships with. You know, people you trust, people who you are your friends, become part of your family, right? You know, I think it starts at home, starts with your family, and I don't mean that in a narrow way, in a narrow sanguinary or blood based way. I mean, when we build family, I mean that's honestly what I love about Afrocentricity International. I didn't know many of those people, and I really consider them my family now. You know, and I think that's the kind of answer we're looking for. When we see each other as family, then we will act together on one accord, right? And something Brother Hannibal said earlier. Uh, you know, would you say that you said the heart and the stomach don't have the same function?
Right. I said the heart don't try to do the stomach's job, and the
Yeah,
stomach don't try to do the heart's job.
yeah. So if everybody in the family has their given occupation, their job, their role, what they do, and you guys work in concert, you work together as a family, then what happens is, you know, families working in concert with other families, you know, produce ultimately, you know, well, here in the United States, I mean, you have to move aside the nation that does exist to produce a nation, which is another issue. But to me, that's what a nation is. A nation is an amalgamation of families. So if your family has these people doing these things, and we're all working together, and you work with someone else's family, then I think that's when things become practical. That's when things become tangible. And when things become tangible for people, I think you'll find less and less people have excuses, and more people will be willing to participate, you know, and join and build upon what it is that you're already building. So I really do think it's about leadership. I don't think it's about saving the community. I think it's about us saving ourselves and setting the example, trailblazing for people who need to understand, or would like to understand, because you can only help people who are willing. You know, it's like you can't jump in the water after somebody who's drowning. You know, you can, but at the risk of drowning yourself. You know, what you do is you throw them a lifeline. So what we do is we need to build our boats so that we can throw as many lifelines as possible, instead of jumping in the water and sinking to the bottom, and nothing ever got built to begin with, right? So I hope that answers in some way.
Yeah, so how do we combat people who are coming to be destructive, even if they look like us? So not even talking about white people, but just people who look
Mm-hmm.
like us, who we perceive as being one of us, and we know that that has happened a lot historically. So how
Mhm.
do we combat that?
You know, somebody made a comment earlier in the chat not too long ago. They said we're talking about these issues, and I had mentioned there's a money component. We need money to do some of this work, and somebody said I don't think the money is the problem. I think it's because it's not sexy enough, and there's not another culture propelling. I want to focus on the it's not sexy enough. That is here's how I interpret that. They don't have the spiritual motivation to choose this allocation of the funds over another one. Okay, they don't have the spiritual motivation.
Mm,
Dr. Marimba Ani, who is a genius in her own right, she said that all things in within the canon of African spirituality, within the construct of African spirituality, all things are spirit, and everything you see in the physical world is just a manifestation of the spirit.
mm,
Now, here's how I define spirit for this conversation. You can't touch it. If it's mental, if it's emotional, it is in a way spiritual. So our desire is spiritual. Our philosophies are spiritual. Our bias is spiritual. Um, and the thing is, like she said, a lot of people just aren't spiritually in alignment with fighting for the community.
mm-hmm,
Like there are plenty, like she said, money isn't always the problem. There's lots of black people who have aggregated resources, but they don't have the spiritual motivation to choose forming an organization that fights medical apartheid over buying a Bentley.
mm-hmm.
To them, the choice is clear. I want a Bentley, and if I can get a Bentley, then you Negroes can get a Bentley. And so I ain't gonna put this $100,000 into this forming this organization that could make a transformational um, uh, 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 that can transform the medical industry. We have to start with the spirit. It's easy for me to make decisions that are black centric because I goddamn love black people. And it's not nothing that I have to try to do. It starts with my orientation. So we have to stoke that fire. We have to give that love to the kids, and that's part of education, right? We give that love to the kids such that that spiritual motivation, when they get access to resources or they get a place of position, the spiritual motivation causes them to make the decisions and allocate resources for the betterment of the group. Okay, we can start. If look, it gotta be sexy to love your people.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make it sexy.
Mm-hmm.
We have to appeal. We have to spend money uh, on the marketing that it takes to affect minds, just like these other assholes who are competing for our attention and for our mental space. They're like, all they want us to do is buy stuff and make subscriptions to whiteness. And they're willing to spend money to do that. We have to be willing to spend money to get our kids to love black people so much that they make black decisions.
Mm,
Yeah, we need propaganda for ourselves.
mm,
Fucking right we do.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we need. And we need people to not shrink from the word propaganda. Just because its connotations are unsavory doesn't mean that's not what we absorb every day.
no, Garvey was a propagandist. The Panthers had
We're
propaganda.
surrounded by
Yeah.
propaganda constantly. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that their motivation is base. They just want you to buy something. They
Right.
just want you to make subscriptions to the Eurocentric way, which is selfish and materialistic and empty and dead. We have to start with the spirit. That's the component that we've been missing. And that's the most African shit that's been said since we started talking. Is it not? Who's
Right.
saying I'm lying? I dare you. I am not.